Hello, little bungus watching this video. Thank you for watching the video. Hey. Thank you, little bungus. Counter-Strike 1 year wonders are a thing of beauty. You know, a fella who decides to play out of his fucking mind for 1 year and then loses his hands for every single year after this. And while you might not think there are a lot of these guys, there's probably more than you would expect. As today, we will be talking about over 31 year wonders throughout Counter-Strike history and ranking them based on how much I think they actually were a 1 year wonder or if they are being falsely accused. If they were actually a pretty good player overall, and they just fell into what my definition of a 1 year wonder is. And well, what this definition is very simple. How I am going to describe this in this video is a player who has showed up one time on the HLTV top 20 list and never again. And this really puts us all over the spectrum because this brings us some players who were incredibly good for 1 year and then were never really the same. Some players who were consistently very good for a long time and just had 1 year slightly better than all the rest. Or maybe their team success was just significantly better 1 year and that was enough to get them on the list because we all know how HLTV ranks their players. Team success is a huge part of it. And so what I am going to do is start this list off with all of the S tier players. S tier players are players who made this list, but I personally don't really think fit the description of a 1 year wonder, and more so made the list based on team success or, you know, other similar factors. The first player I'm going to talk about in the S tier is Mr. FNX. FNX made his only ever HLTV top 20 list in 2016 at number 19, and this was mostly due to team success as, you know, he won 2 fucking majors this year. But not only this, FNX had broken out a decade before this. He broke out in 1.6 and won a major with MIBR in 2006. And so he just decided he was gonna win 2 more a decade later. And so just in no universe is FNX a 1 year wonder. And he had been a very good player for a decade before this at this point. He left Counter-Strike to go on a dating show for a while. You know, FNX is goated. He can't be any lower than S tier here. The next player in S tier is 4-time major winning IGL Glaive, who was such a good fragger, and Astralis was just easily without a doubt the best team in the entire world in 2018, that he came in number 8 on the 2018 HLTV top 20 list and never made the list again. Well, because he's a goddamn IGL, what do you expect? Making the list at all as a caller is kind of a generational feat, and then again, it's Glaive. You know, you just can't call Glaive a 1 year wonder. And the last player up in S tier, it's a very, very small tier, a player you might not expect, and that is actually Kiyoshima. I'm gonna glaze Kiyoshima a little bit here because while he only made the HLTV top 20 list once in 2014 at number 19 in the world, you know, he was on both majority French teams to have won a major and also came in 2nd place at a major. And this wasn't like something that happened all in 1 year. A majority of his success came from like 2014 to 2016, where he won a bunch of other tournaments besides those majors and was a consistently solid fragger throughout his entire career pretty much, but he was never like the team's main star rifler. So besides 2014, he never really put up good enough numbers to make this list again. I don't believe by any means you can call Kiyoshima a 1 year wonder. Follically challenged Garmour speaking. Guys, if you would like to support me in the stuff I do here, check out the new long-term sponsor of the Garmour YouTube channel, SkinSwap. SkinSwap is the #1 place to trade your Rust or Counter-Strike skins for new ones where you can instantly upgrade your inventory. And if you use my code Garmour, you can get up to $50 on a free skin and a 3% lifetime selling bonus. And now you can also easily buy skins off the Chinese marketplace for cheaper prices than you ever could on the Western marketplaces. I truly think this is the best feature on any skin trading website, but if you are looking to sell, you can sell your skins for crypto, PayPal, Venmo, and a bunch of other withdrawal methods. Along with this, SkinSwap has a vault system now, which makes it the most rewarding skin trading website. And of course, don't forget the giveaways. And I think that's it. Thank you to them, thank you to you guys, and back to the video. Next up, we have the A tier, and this is the biggest tier of the entire video. And this is just kind of players where, yes, they clearly had one very good year. 1 year where you can easily say they deserve to make the HLTV top 20 list, but along with that one clearly very good year, they also had a bunch of other very, very solid years. And the first on this list is Ethan. We just talked about Ethan a couple of videos ago, he actually has one of the highest rated years in Counter-Strike history. The year before, he made the HLTV top 20 list in 2018. But in 2019, he barely slid on here, getting the number 20 spot. He was probably from like the 20 to 30 range for players in the world, at least when NRG/EG were still considered a top team. In 2018, when NRG first started to climb up the ranks, he had a 1.22 rating. In 2019, a 1.13, and in 2020, a 1.12. So realistically, in tier 1, he had about 3 very solid years. And while his 2021 wasn't looking great, this is also when Evil Geniuses started to become a little bit dysfunctional, and he left the game to go play Valorant. And well, he's had a ton of success over in that game, so I do still believe Ethan would have had quite a few great years in Counter-Strike. You know, he would have been one of North America's best riflers, but it got cut short because he left us. Really? Next in the A tier is Alu. Realistically, when you look at Alu overall, he was a very solid opper for pretty much a decade. You know, he was farming ratings in 2013. He was farming ratings on Mouse in 2014. And then he eventually got his shot on a real tier 1 team in 2015 with an IP. This is, of course, also the year he placed in the HLTV top 20 list, where he was the number 19 ranked player in the world. But despite this individual accolade, this was one of Alu's lower rated years, as he had a 1.05, but NIP was one of the best teams in the world during this time. They did make a major final, so I guess it does make sense. But then Alu continues to basically jump around every single team on Earth. At the end of 2015, he played one event for Liquid, rejoined ENCE, a team he had played on earlier in his career, then played on FaZe for a while, joined Optic, and then went back to ENCE, where they eventually had their big breakout year in 2019. And during this entire stint, Alu was a very solid opper. He just couldn't really stick on one team for a very long time, but I do think you can say when he made the HLTV top 20 list in 2015 is when he probably had the most time in the spotlight. You could also say 2019 ends. I guess it's really up to you. Next on this list is Config. Config made his only HLTV top 20 list in 2017, and he was the number 14 ranked player in the world. On 2017, a part of the reason he made this list is because he was on North, who was a top 10 ranked team pretty much the entire year, and he was one of the best players on the team. But he then was unfortunately removed from North, and then he kind of bounced around. He played for a scuffed Optic rebuild, where he still put up numbers, played for Complexity, where he once again put up very good numbers, and then eventually played for Astralis and NIP, where he still was putting up good numbers. And at initial glance, I actually thought Config was going to be lower rated on this list. I thought he was more of a one-year wonder, but I mean, when you look at Config overall, he was a very good rifler for years. He just could never really find himself in a super stable situation ever since he was benched on North at the start of 2018. Next up on this list, we have Woxic. He placed in the HLTV top 20 list in 2019 and was the number 12 player in the world during his time on Hellraisers and Mouse. And to be fair, I do think you can kind of easily say this probably is Woxic's best point in his career. You know, he won the most trophies in his career on Mouse, but realistically, he broke out in 2018 before he even made this list, posting a 1.14 rating at big events with Hellraisers, and he's also been a very solid opper ever since he joined Eternal Fire and now Aurora. And you know, if you're a good opper in the game for 8 years, kind of hard to call you a one-year wonder. The other player in A tier is Automatic, and it kind of pained me to even see Automatic on this list because he was so fucking good during his entire time on Cloud9. But his only placement on this list was in 2018, where he was the number 17 ranked player in the world, and it just kind of comes down to Cloud9 as a team was never really good enough to have him placed on this list besides the year they won the Boston Major. Like, I think if he would have been in a stable team, he would have continued to be an incredibly solid rifler, one of the best riflers in the world for years to come, you know. But after Cloud9 started crumbling, he tried to main op for a while, moved over to Gen G. He was never really the same player. And while we're talking about Cloud9, we might as well talk about Skadoodle, a teammate of Automatic, major winner in 2018, and the last North American opper to ever be on this list. And he placed on this list. Let me check my my data, my watch. was 2015, which was 11 fucking years ago, where he placed number 20. And like Skadoodle in 2015 was a very good player. He deserved to be on this list. Surely the best year in his career, but it's not like this was the only year he was good. You know, he was very good in 2013 and 2014, where he did play big events with iBuyPower. And while maybe he did get slightly worse from 2016 to 2018, it wasn't like he fell off the face of the earth. And I mean, he killed Guardian at the end of the Boston Major, so I can't put you in one-year wonder, buddy. Sorry to say. Next up on this list is someone who I think is not going to be on this list for very, very long, and that is Wonderful. In my glass ball, where I see into the future, I'm pretty sure Wonderful is going to make the HLTV top 20 list this year, unless him and Na'Vi fall off the face of the earth. You know, it is kind of tough with Na'Vi missing the playoffs of Cologne. That is going to tank his chances significantly because that matters, you know, a ton in the HLTV rankings. So I guess I could see him missing if Na'Vi also misses the playoffs of the major later this year, but you know, hopefully not. But yeah, Wonderful's only HLTV top 20 appearance was in at number 11 in 2024, where Na'Vi was pretty dominant. You know, they won the first major of CS2. They were the team of the year this year. I mean, Wonderful was a very, very solid offer for them, posting a 1.13 rating over the course of 2024. And like I said, I don't suspect he's going to be on this list for very long. Next is Cadian. Another situation where it's an IGL who squeaked his way onto a top 20 list. That in itself is generational. So Cadian's been playing Counter-Strike for a minute. And I mean, he just went from team to team to team to team to team in CSGO before eventually finding great success in Heroic. But you know, it wasn't like it was only 1 year. Heroic was good from 2020 to 2023. And so while maybe, you know, he's a 3-year merchant, a Heroic merchant, I don't think you can say Cadian is a 1-year merchant. And in being the IGL of Heroic, while also being individually good enough to make the HLTV top 20 list, you know, you're going to get a little bit of extra glaze on this one. Next up is another IGL, and I'm pretty sure the last IGL on this entire list, and that's Dennis. Dennis placed on the HLTV top 20 list back in 2016 with Fnatic. He broke out with Kingwin and G2, as Kingwin made the playoffs of Cologne and the semis of Cluj-Napoca, where after this great success, he was then poached by Fnatic, and they went on to win quite a few tournaments towards the end of the year, before they started to fall off a little bit more, and Dennis got sent away to Godsend Jail. So I would say Dennis's main prime was like 2015 to 2016, but he was also, you know, fairly solid for quite a few years after that. And the last player in this category who I actually kind of did struggle with quite a bit is Hiko. Hiko was the number 9 player in 2013 and never made the list again. And I'm not gonna lie to you, after kind of looking over Hiko some more, I think you can kind of easily say that 2013 was without a doubt his individual best year in his career. And I mean, he was still a very good player a couple years after that, especially when he was on Liquid. He took more of a backseat role in Liquid. He wasn't putting up, you know, as good numbers as he was in 2013. But, you know, Hiko, simple on Liquid, 2016, made a major final, you know, made the semis of the other major. It's not like Hiko was only good for 1 year, but I think Hiko is just too iconic.
Garmour is going to be waiting. Hiko charges in, doesn't check. Oh, what? Oh my god! Inhuman reactions!
Okay, maybe that's a little bit of bias on my part. But yeah, he's the last player to close out the A tier here. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Me splitting up the players from the A tier to the B tier was just kind of like a vibe thing. You know, it's kind of similar to where like 1 year you could say was pretty clearly better than the rest, but they were just kind of like overall worse than the players in A tier, it feels like. The first player in B tier is Cirque. Hey man. God bless Prime Cirque. He placed on this list in 2019 as the number 18 player in the world. And very similarly to Ethan, he was on NRG when they really broke out, and then also Evil Geniuses. And while you could say like Cirque and Ethan are very similar, you know, they both placed on the list the same year, and Cirque actually placed higher. And both had really like 3 very good years in tier 1 from 2018 to 2020. You know, I just think like we saw Cirque fall off with Evil Geniuses.
You got to win today, mate. Shouldn't you be happy?
Yeah, I'm happy, but you know, it's EG.
Well, Ethan moved to a different game to find great success, and so I just kind of feel like I have to put Cirque a tier lower. He was still a very good player for 3 years, and my god, what a good 3 years it was. Next in the B tier, I have Cajun B. Cajun B was the number 15 player in the world in 2015. And once again, like, I feel you can draw very similar comparisons between Config and Cajun B. For a lot of the earlier years of CSGO, Cajun B was with the Astralis Corps. And when he made this list, it was when he played for TSM, and TSM won 5 tournaments that year. They also made the playoffs of all 3 majors. You know, honestly, I don't know. Cajun B might deserve to be an A tier. I might be having a mental crisis right now. It's like, he really wasn't a one-year wonder. He had a lot of very solid years. Dude, these tiers are fucking me up. I think Cajun B deserves to be an A tier. Him and Config are too similar. I can't have them in different tiers. Like, this guy was consistently a solid rifler for like 6 fucking years, man. Even though he was bouncing around, you know, Danish teams on Dignitas, North, Optic. He was even on Scuffed Cloud9 for a little bit, and the entire time he was solid. So we gotta put Cajun B in A tier. So then that means Cirque is the only B tier player right now, and right next to Cirque I have Smiths. And the weird thing about Smiths, he was decent at the start of CSGO in 2012. And then in 2013, at the 2 big events of the year, he posted a 1.21 rating, which is how he ended up with his HLTV top 20 placement, as he was the number 17 ranked player in 2013. You know, he then went on to win a major in 2014, but after his 1.21 rating at big events in 2013, in 2014, he went to a 0.88, in 2015, a 0.9, in 2016, a 0.93, and you kind of get the point. But he is just in the B tier here because it's not like he was even that insane in 2013. And so I don't know. I feel weird about Smiths. Like, he doesn't feel like as much of a one-year wonder as a lot of the players in the tiers below him, because despite not putting up numbers, he did win a fuck ton of tournaments, you know, from the start of CSGO all the way to 2015. So I think B tier, I guess, is a fine place for him. Then next in the B tier, I have Henny. Henny's another strange one, man, because like he is and he isn't a one-year wonder.
What kind of nonsense is this?
You know, he placed on the list in 2020 during the online era when he was playing for Furia and was the number 16 ranked player in the world. But like, prior to this, Henny had played for years and was consistently farming in tier 2 Brazil. And a lot of times this would even translate over into tier 1. Henny just never really got a super good shot in tier 1. From what I've heard, a lot of it comes down to personality issues. Furia was very good during the online era, but like, this is also weird because he was just playing NA and South American teams. He wasn't really playing a lot of European teams. And so it's very weird. Like, he did make that major final with Immortals. And so like, Henny was good for quite a few years. You know, his only time really playing on like a tier 1 team was in 2020 with Furia. And so that's like his main year. If you want to count his years on Immortals, I guess you can. But I feel like Immortals was more of like a tier 1.5 team. I don't know, bro. Maybe I'm on crack. I think Henny's fine here in the B tier though. And then lastly, we have a player who's kind of just here because he only ever ended up on the list due to team success for the most part, and isn't in the A tier because I just don't think he's as good of a player as a lot of the other players in A tier was, and that is Bialy. And like, don't get things twisted. I'm not trying to say Bialy was a bad player by any means, but like, I feel like Bialy and Smiths are kind of in the same group here. Like, Bialy wasn't as bad of a fragger as Smiths was, but like in 2014, VP won the major. They were one of the best teams in the world. And Bialy was good on this team. He posted a 1.07 rating, and that's how he got on this list. But there was not really any other year in Bialy's career where he could mimic this. And like, another similarity between the two is like, Bialy was a big event farmer in 2014, where Smith's rating went up dramatically in 2013 when he used the big events filter. Bialy's does the same thing in 2014, where he had a 1.19 rating. And so it's just kind of one of those cases where like 2014 was clearly Bialy's best year. And while he was like pretty decent in 2016 as well, every other year was kind of meh. Now we finally get to like the bottom half of this list, where I feel like you could say every single one of these players could be considered a one-year wonder. You know, they had one great year and everything after that was very meh. They could never really get back to that same place. Or, you know, in the case of some of the players, they just had one incredibly successful year with a team, and then they either left that team, the team got worse, you know, their individuals got worse, players. And the first player I'm going to talk about in the C tier is JimFat. I don't feel great about it. And while you could say JimFat is kind of similar to Wonderful, but the case with Jimmy, I feel like he does have maybe a little bit more going for him in him being a one-year wonder. Because while Wonderful is, a star opper who we've seen take over events, he won an MVP this year. While Wonderful's an opper, Jimmy is an anchor. And it's very, very hard for anchors to make this list unless their team is completely dominant or the anchor is genuinely just like
transcendent.
And while both of those boxes were ticked in 2024 when Jimmy made this list, okay, well, I mean, I guess like Mouse was not
Transcendent
in 2024, but they were a consistently great tier 1 team and won 3 tournaments. And along with this, Jimmy as an anchor had a 1.17 rating. I mean, bro, back in 2024, it was genuinely looking like JimFat was the best anchor in the entire world. There were teams drooling to try to get him on their roster, Falcons being one of them, it seemed like. But then after 2024 ended and Mouse made the shock roster move of benching Shui and they replaced him with Spinks, Jimmy was never really the same. He went from a 1.17 rating in 2024 to a 1.04 in 2025. And while this is still like good numbers for an anchor, if you can get anything over a 1.0 from your anchor, I feel like you're sitting pretty good. It still is a pretty dramatic fall off from the year before. And then this year in 2026, it was looking about the same, if not a little worse, and then was benched and now is on Aurora. And while I do still think Jimmy is a very good player, and he could eventually get back to that form on Aurora and maybe make the HLTV top 20 again. And so while it's not impossible, it will be tough. And I do feel like at this point of his career, you definitely can call JimFat a one-year wonder. The next player who was supposed to be on this list that I will be moving up to B tier, I'm sorry for continuing to do this, is Valde. And originally when I placed Valde in C tier, I think it was out of frustration. Because originally when I was watching Counter-Strike and I kept watching Valde, I would go, holy shit, this guy's insane. And now all I would hear is, Valde is going to break out. Valde is going to break out. And while I feel like he was a solid rifler for quite a few years, I feel like the breakout never really happened. He did place on the HLTV top 20 in 2018 with North, as he was the number 20 player in the world, but never really got back to that list again. And a lot of that was just kind of because the teams he was on just weren't good enough. He did end up joining OG, who was supposed to be a super team, but they were very inconsistent and were never really solid enough for him to make the HLTV top 20 list again. But I do have to admit that like throughout most of his time in tier 1, in tier 1.5 with like North and OG, he put up very good numbers. It was just that in 2018, he had his most success. And I do think he fits with the players in B tier more than the players in C tier. So with that out of the way, we're going back to the C tier. The next player in C tier, I'm actually going to put Yabby. And while you might think this is a bad placement, hear me out first. Yabby placed in the HLTV top 20 list in 2023 with Heroic, where he placed as the number 15 player in the world. And the thing with Yabby is he originally broke out with Copenhagen Flames in 2021, when they made their nearly playoff run at Stockholm. He was then eventually picked up by Heroic in 2022, but at big events in 2022, he posted a 0.99 rating and really didn't look great until he finally got comfortable in 2023 and posted a 1.10 at big events, really showing off why Heroic picked him up in the first place. He was very solid this year, but that's also the year where he would, do Stabby and join Astralis. He basically ruined his career because while Yabby has been fine after this, while Heroic was, winning tournaments and making finals, Astralis in 2024 was not good. They were not good at all. So Yabby is one of those cases where sure, maybe his stats in 2024 weren't as bad. His real breakout year was 2023 when he made the HLTV top 20 list. And then after joining Astralis, their success wasn't nearly as good as Heroic's was. And so I do think he fits in the C tier because he had his breakout year and then kind of threw it all away. The next player I have in C tier is Nertz, and I'm not gonna lie to you fellas, Nertz is like strikingly similar to Yabby, at least stats-wise. He initially broke out in 2023 with Ents, and was the number 14 player in the world. He also was the Rookie of the Year this year, and Ents was consistently one of the best teams in the world and also won IEM Dallas. And so with this great team success, and with Nertz kind of breaking out in 2023, his rating at big events this year was a 1.11, his team completely crumbled, but unlike Yabby, this was not his fault. His core just simply got bought out by Falcons. And so he would then go on to play for Heroic in 2024, where Heroic was a fun project. And you know, Nerds did post a 1.12 at big events, actually going up from his previous in 2023. Similar to Yabby, the team results were not nearly as good as, you know, they were on ENTS, so he didn't make the list this year. And then in 2025, he joins Liquid and forgets he has hands. Most players, when they join Liquid, this does tend to happen. So like, without a doubt, clearly the best year in Nerds' history is 2023. And while he continued to play well the year afterwards, the team success just wasn't there, and then it's just been downhill since then. Then after Nerds, we have Malbs, and this one is incredibly painful to me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Malbs made the HLTV top 20 list in 2024. Half of this year he was playing for M80, the other half he was playing for G2, and he was the number 12 player in the world. And let me tell you what, fellas, 2024 Malbs, I mean, this guy looked like a generational talent. He was putting up numbers like I have quite literally never seen in tier 2 NA and against top 20 teams, despite M80 typically losing because the teams they were playing were just kind of a level above them. He still posted a 1.19. He was a fucking phenomenal prospect on M80. And then when he joined G2, he still put up very good numbers. And this was despite him changing a lot of his positions and having to play anchor positions on G2. And while I do still think Malbs could be a very good player, I think the Malbs that we saw in 2024 was just so fucking good. And then everything after that has been very meh. And like, I do get there have been role changes. You know, when Nico left, he was supposed to fill Nico's shoes, and it just really seemed like he couldn't, which I don't know who the fuck can fill Nico's shoes. It's not really his fault. But I think you do have to say, just with how good he was in 2024 and then how he's been in 2025, 2026, he hasn't been horrible, but up to this point, without a doubt, a one-year wonder. Okay, guys, listen, after Cage and B, I'm moving one more player into the A tier, and that is going to be Adren. Initially, I was like unsure about Adren. He played 1.6 since 2005 and was a part of so many incredible rosters in CSGO, of the Virtus Pro team that broke the 87-0 NIP streak. He was a part of a fairly cool Astana Dragons roster. He was good on Hellraisers, and then he was insane on Gambit, where he won the major and was the major MVP. He won 2 trophies on FaZe, and then also was on a Vanguard in 2019, where he made a major final with them. So I mean, Adren's history goes back so far. The only reason why he's in A tier is like, despite all of these other achievements, I do think like very clearly 2017 was his best year. At big events in 2017 with Gambit, he had a 107, and while he was also fairly good in 2016 with a 108, the team success wasn't really as good. And I mean, every other single year is very meh, like a 0.98 in 2018, a 0.89 in 2019, but overall he's so storied. It's kind of like Hiko that I think I just gotta put him in A tier. And the last player in this tier, I have Sunpius. Sunpius was the number 6 player in 2023 and broke out alongside Nerds this year. I mean, he kind of broke out the year before this in 2022 when he played for Movie Star Riders and then was eventually picked up by ENTS. But yeah, in 2023 when ENTS started to become one of the better teams in the world, one of the main reasons for this was Sunpius. In 2023, he posted a 1.17 rating at big events and really was the main driving force, you know, making ENTS a top team. He also was the MVP of IEM Dallas, the tournament ENTS won, and all this was enough to make him the number 6 player in the world. But unfortunately, you know, I guess it's a mix of a couple things. CS2 was coming out and that kind of nerfed Oppers, and he also got bought by Falcons. And money was on Falcons. Falcons were one of the worst teams on earth. They were so bad. And so while Sunpius was good in 2022, without a doubt the best year in his career is 2023, and it's not really close. And immediately after 2023, it's down here. You know, 2024 a 104, 2025 a 102, and 2026 a 105. So like, after his breakout year, he's been fine. But when you are, you know, the number 6 player in the world, to then not even really being in consideration to make the top 20 list at all and just being a serviceable opper, it's a sad fall off, man. It really does bring a tear to my eye. But then again, it's, you know, it's not all his fault. Now we finally get to the last 7 players of this list. I think each and every single one of these players is without a doubt, you can't tell me any other way, they are a one-year wonder. The first player in the D tier, I have Nico, the Danish Opper, who was on the HLTV top 20 list in 2013. I have talked about Nico before in my ranking every Opper who's made the top 20 list, so I won't go like too super in depth with him. But for a majority of 2013, he played on a team called Western Wolves, and then played for Copenhagen Wolves at DreamHack Winter 2013, where they made the playoffs, where he played fairly well. At big events in 2013, which is just DreamHack Winter and Copenhagen games, he had a 1.19 rating. But then in 2014, it goes to a 0.97, and then he quite literally never played a big event again. Next in the D tier, we have Sunny. Sunny made the HLTV top 20 list with Mouse in 2018 as the number 16 player in the world. And in 2018 with Mouse, Sunny won 3 tournaments, and at big events posted a 1.13 rating. He was an incredibly good rifler this year, but then at the start of 2019, Mouse revamped their entire roster, and Sunny was one of the players who was benched. And so after his first full year in tier 1, sure, he was fine in 2017 as well, but for a lot of that year, he was playing on Penta. So like 2018 really was his first full year in tier 1. And then he got benched at the start of 2019. And then he, goes on to join ENCE to replace Alexi B, and well, the rest is history. Pretty much everything that happened in Sunny's career happened at the very end of 2017 and throughout 2018. The next player in D tier is Searson. And listen, man, I love Searson, okay? In 2019, he was farming tier 2 on German team Sprout. And well, this was then enough to get him called up to big, where we then had the online era. And my God, the online era turned Searson into the greatest Opper in the world. Genuinely, this guy was a fucking freak. Searson in 2020 posted a 1.16 rating, and at one point, Big was the number 1 ranked team in the world. And I mean, it seemed like Searson and Zontaras at this time they were the simple and electronic duo, boosting the rest of Big. But then in 2021, when we got back to LAN play, Searson's rating dropped down to a 1.05. And at this point, while Big was still a solid team, they weren't nearly as good as they were in 2020. And well, neither was Searson. He went on to eventually get benched at the start of 2023, play in tier 2 for a while. Big tried him out again for a little bit, and on his second stint with Big, he posted a 0.98 rating. But hey man, do never forget the online era Searson. And the next player on this list you actually might not expect, he's kind of a sneak placement, and that is Boltz. Boltz got his top 20 placement in 2017 as the number 18 player in the world. He started breaking out with Immortals in 2016, before we get to 2017, and 2017 is just simply the Boltz year. Him and Immortals started kind of playing out of their fucking minds as they placed in the semis at IEM Katowice 2017, and then made the finals of PGL Major Krakow, where on Immortals in 2017, Boltz posted a 1.16 rating and a 1.10 against top 20 teams. This was then enough to get him called up to SK Gaming, where they won 3 events to close out the year and made the semis of IEM Oakland 2017. And with SK, Boltz would post a 1.12 rating. Over 2017, Boltz in total posted a 1.15, looking like one of the best young Brazilian riflers in the entire scene. Then in 2018 at big events, it goes to a 0.99. Then he kind of was trapped in tier 2 until he eventually played with Imperial for a bit. And ever since his big breakout year in 2017, he really has not been the same player, which is a very sad fall off to see, man, because he really was looking like the greatest young player in all of South America. Now, in at the F tier, I think without a doubt, these are the 3 biggest one-year wonders in Counter-Strike history. Maybe you can make an argument. First off, it's gonna be Sergey. You motherfuckers remember Prime Sergey, man? This dude was insane. He was looked at as the best young rifler in the world at one point. He broke out with ENCE, of course, in 2019, and he was the number 13 ranked player in the world. This year at big events, he posted a 1.12, and I mean, he was genuinely hitting clips against the top ranked teams in the world. But unfortunately, while 2019 was an incredible breakout year for Sergey and all events, he was not the chosen one from this team. No, the chosen one from this 2019 ENCE team was, of course, Alexi B. And well, after Alexi B was benched to end 2019, the entirety of ENCE and all of the players were never the same. Sergey went from the number 13 player in the world to, in 2020, posting a 0.98 rating. He then was benched on ENCE towards towards the end of 2020, played on Gorillas for a little bit, and completely retired from the game altogether. The story of Sergey is so sad, man. Truly maybe one of the biggest what-ifs in Counter-Strike history. What if Vents keeps Alexi B, and what if Sergey is still one of the best riflers in the world? Who's to say? Next on this list, another one that's incredibly painful to me. It just simply has to be Swag. I mean, bro, the hold Swag had on North America for years and years was unbelievable. Swag was a young, talented North American rifler who had been, holy fucking brain melt, bro, who was here since the start of the very, very early days of CSGO. He played in DreamHack Winter in 2012 when it wasn't even considered a major yet, and posted a 1.12 rating. They made the playoffs but lost in the quarters. 2013, he played on Complexity, but Swag's real breakout year was without a doubt 2014 with iBuyPower. Because in 2014 with iBuyPower, he showed that he could farm tier 1 teams along with the tier 2 teams he was already farming in NA. Because at big events this year, he posted a 1.2 rating and of course was the number 18 player in the entire world. You know, but then the throw happens, and Swag's career is immediately killed. Nobody could forget what he did in 2014. I mean, dear God, it was talked about for years and years and years afterwards how good of a player he could have been if he wasn't banned. And I really do think that is true. Like, he was one of the best prospects in the entire region. But almost all of that came from 1 year of very good play. So, yeah, you know, 2014 Swag, hey, man, hey, you will be missed. But I do think, without a doubt, the best one-year wonder in Counter-Strike history. I have never in my entire life seen someone break out in the way this player had and take over the entire game in 1 year and then seemingly completely disappear. And I mean, you probably know it, it's gotta be JL. While JL kind of broke out with Apex in 2023, you know, he was a good player in tier 2. When Apex made the semis of the Paris Major, he posted a .94 over, you know, the course of that event, over the main stage of that event. And then after he got picked up by Navi, he posted a 103 to end 2023. But my fucking God, we were not ready for the damage this man was about to do in 2024. 2024 JL is like a mythical type year. He just seemingly comes out of nowhere, plays out of his mind at the Copenhagen Major, helping Navi, who were severe underdogs, win the first major in CS2's history. He then continues to play out of his mind for pretty much the entire year. Navi wins 3 more tournaments, and he becomes the closer of the year, the number 5 player of the year, a major winner, a major MVP, and won another MVP at ESL Pro League Season 20. I mean, bro, the run that JL went on in 2024 was so unbelievable, and I mean, he did take full advantage of it. He became a personality. He took a lot of this success and did a great job transferring it over to other social media platforms like YouTube and Twitch. And so now, entirely because of this 1 year, JL is one of the biggest personalities in the entire space. And then after his unbelievable 2024, in 2025, Navi was not really the same team. He posted a 1.06 before benching himself halfway into the year. And we haven't really seen him on a team since. Sure, he's had stand-in stints on Liquid, Mouse, and now Vitality, but it's been about a full year now, and we have not seen JL actually play on a team for real. And so I do believe, you know, there could be a JL career revival at some point. We'll have to see. But like, I feel like I can't not put him as like the number 1 year wonder in Counter-Strike history up to this point. And holy fuck, I've been recording for so long, I'm going to pass out. I don't know how long this video is going to end up being. I may have yapped for significantly too long. So I'm just gonna, I just gotta go, guys. I gotta go eat lunch. You know, liking the video if you liked, subscribing if you want to subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to be notified, and I'm fucking out of here.